Hi guys, today I wanted to talk about some door manners. So door manners are important for safety. When I say door manners, essentially I want your dog to have a little bit of hesitation at the door. I don't want them to rush out the door as soon as it opens. This is super important. It helps to keep your dog from getting lost. It is also super helpful for starting off walks on the right note. If your dog is starting off a walk with their nose in the door before you even open that door, and they're super excited, you're not going to start off that walk on the right foot. Your dog's already too amped up, they're not paying attention. Instead, we can start off walks correctly by having your dog have a little bit of self-control before we even get started. And it's just a great safety exercise because not every time the door opens is your dog going outside. So we're using Sweet Pea here today. She's a little bit older, so her manners are starting to slip a little bit, but she'll be a great example. With door manners, I'm using a little bit of spatial pressure. I showed that in a previous video. Essentially, I am walking towards her to back her up. Tends to work particularly well for herding dogs because that's how they move other dogs. Some dogs tend to be a little bit more dense with it than the herding dogs, such as bully breeds, Labradors, some hounds. Those dogs, you might have to bump into them a little bit. You might have to play a little bit of side to side, being kind of the goalkeeper, but they will figure it out eventually. So if I start going to this door, and I open it up, and Sweet Pea rushes forward. When she rushes forward, I'm going to close that door. Coming forward means that the door closes. I can also use spatial pressure to back her up even further if I want. It's a good idea to have kind of a couple of feet in between that door and your dog, and just have that be the expectation for where they stay. It's also super helpful to have your dog on a leash during this exercise. That's just a safety precaution. That way, if they do slip out the door, you still have your dog attached to you. So if I start opening up my door, she comes forward, the door is going to close. Some dogs will back up on their own. Sometimes you have to back them up to the spot that you want. It is helpful to have a set marker. Sometimes it's going to be a threshold into another room. Sometimes it's going to be a rug. For some dogs, it's helpful for them to have a specific area that they should go to. Some dogs will also rush forward just with you touching the door before the door even opens. In that case, I will back away from the door. So we're essentially encouraging our dogs to problem solve. You're saying, I go away from the door every time you touch it. They're used to, every time you touch the door, something excited happens. They have a conditioned emotional response, which means that they get very amped up when they see these triggers. So now we're kind of reconditioning them and going, that's not what I'm expecting you to do. We are setting a new standard. I don't really care if your dog is sitting, standing, laying down. I'm not using obedience for this. I want your dog to choose their own right answer. So long as they're behind the solid line and staying relatively calm, I'm happy. Some dogs do better being told what to do than others, so my goal is to not have to tell my dog what to do. I want them to figure it out. Figuring things out is a huge confidence boost. It's great for frustration tolerance, which a lot of dogs struggle with. It's also great for problem solving. Problem solving is good for dogs, and they're problem solving in a way that is productive for us. Most problem solving isn't very productive for us. They figure out that when they bark at us, we give them treats. So this is productive problem solving. I reach towards the door, start to open it. If she stays back, I could go break. Break means that she can go forwards. Now we have a storm door, so I would do the same exercise with this. I touch that door handle, she starts to go forward, I will back her up. Same thing. My goal is that, again, she has some respect around the door, so that if I have to open up the door or grab something from the mailman, she's not right in this door frame like a lot of dogs are. She gives the door a couple of feet of space. This means that we can take packages directly from our mailman through our door with a couple of dogs behind us and no one rushes outside. Because that's not their prerequisite. They have to wait until we tell them that it's okay. So it's an implied wait, essentially. You can do this with every door if you want. We have our front door, we usually only go out when we're doing walks, and our back door is for our backyard. That's fenced in, our dogs get to play. The space that we require them to stay back there is a little bit shorter, but we still have a required wait. This is also fantastic for getting your dogs out of their crates. So I'm going to cut to a clip of that in a minute. But that's how we can start off with your door thing, with door manners. You want to do this every time, especially in the beginning, until your dog can do this on their own. You can do this a couple of times when you're not planning on going outside. You do a couple of reps, your dog does really well, you go away, and you can just reward them for a job well done. The baseline is I'm not giving them any treats for this except for potentially at the end because the reward is going outside. This is a natural reward that we're taking advantage of. Every time your dog goes outside, they generally enjoy it, so we want to make sure that they are offering us something positive for it. We don't want them doing negative behaviors or behaviors that we don't enjoy for them to be able to go outside. They're getting reinforced for that every time, so we might as well ask for something that we like. I'll cut to the kennel exercise now. Thank you. Now for doing this with the crate, we're going to do a very similar concept. So this is really helpful for when you come home from work, you're getting your dog or your puppy out of the crate. I want my dog to be relatively calm before I get them out of the crate. Now that's a big expectation for a lot of dogs. A lot of dogs are anxious, they're squirming, they're screaming in their crates. So if I reach for the door and they're scratching at the crate, they're scratching at my hand, I take my hand away. And I wait until they're nice and calm, like Palm is. He's not pushing towards the crate. He's not screaming or anything. If I start to open up the door, he comes forward. The crate door closes. I might have to catch him if I waited a little bit too long. And I just push him back in. The door closes. We haven't done this exercise yet with Palm, so he's going to be a little bit confused, but it's more realistic for you. I want to do a dog who hasn't done this before. So I start opening up that door. He comes forward. The door closes. Not closing it hard on him. It's just a consequence. So I'm having him choose. He comes forward or he leans forward. The door closes. When he's good at staying back, when that door opens, I will be able to tell him break. Break is my release word. You could use whatever word you want so long as it's consistent. I want to use a release word because I want my dogs to be waiting for their cue from me. I don't want them to be choosing to go out on their own. That defeats the purpose of the exercise because then they're not going to choose to wait. So I open up the door, he comes forward, the door closes. You're usually going to have to do this a couple of times. Some dogs will get frustrated in the meantime. They might start scratching. Again, in that case, I would latch the door and take my hand away. Again, it's just a consequence. I'm not really talking to my dog a whole heck of a lot through this. We tend to use our words a little bit too much with our dogs, and that can be very confusing for them. Instead, I want just my actions to speak for me. Dogs have been bred for centuries to pay attention to our body language and what they're doing, so they'll be able to figure it out. Often our words kind of muddy the response because we're going, shh, shh, it's okay, don't be upset, don't do this, don't do that. They don't really know what we're saying, so they're going off of our tone. But a lot of times when we try and be soothing, we're actually quite upsetting for dogs because it sounds like we ourselves are upset. It's like when you try and soothe a small child after they fell. Sometimes when you soothe them, they'll actually become more upset than if you didn't do anything, especially if it's just a little fall. And especially if you are an anxious individual. Kids read the situation just like that as well. So we're going to stay nice and calm and let that influence him. So he steps forward, door closes. Good. Break. Good boy. And I'll let him come up to me. But this way, if your dog's very, very overexcited when they come out of the crate, this encourages him to stay a little bit calmer. Now, if let's say he came out and he was being a little bit too wild, if I didn't like how excited he is right now, I would just grab him and I would put him right back into the crate and we would start again. His excitement there wasn't too bad, but for some people it would be a little bit too much. So if I'm looking for a little bit more emotional regulation, I can put him back into the crate. I'm staying very nice and calm that whole time. If I was getting very excited, it wouldn't be fair for me to expect him to stay calm. So I start opening up that door. He comes forward. The door closes. Door opens. Door closes. Good boy. A lot of times our words can also confuse them. So you'll notice when I told him that he was a good boy, he started coming forward because he thought that that was fine. Break. Good boy. I'll often add a little hand signal because, again, we can add some clarity there. Dogs look at our body language much more than they listen to our words. So that's how you can work a little bit on some manners around the crate and around the door. This works for puppies. This works for adult dogs. And it will just encourage them to be a little bit calmer in those situations. So I hope that that helps, and have a great day.